Closer than you think, Russia's economic collapse. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has taken a turn for the worse, as its coffers are running out of money. Yes, you heard that right. Russia is headed towards an economic collapse. In this video, we will talk about how this economic collapse will manifest itself, so let's jump into it. But before we continue further, I would request you to subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Alright, so Russia is hurting where it hurts the most, their economy. The major impact of cutting off Russian gas and oil is that Russia's oil revenue is quickly drying up. This is excellent news for Ukraine, which is fighting for its existence. But will Russia give up so easily? The answer is no. Putin and his Russian defense team had already anticipated that the West would not take too kindly to their assault. They had thought out how NATO and Western powers would react to Ukraine's invasion. This is another reason why Russia had threatened all other countries that they would suffer the same fate if they intervened in this fight directly. But Russia is also facing an unprecedented level of economic sanction, which has seen a seizure of Visa and immediate pulling out of other financial institutions like MasterCard. The same goes for multinational corporations too, which have stopped working in the country immediately. A direct result of this policy of economic strangulation has led to ATMs being out of cash and compromising Russia's ability to financially deal in dollars, euros, pounds, and yen. Another economic sanction on Russia was on the form of EU oil cap on Russian gas products, which went into effect after the invasion of Ukraine. The immediate effect of this oil cap was that countries such as Germany and Netherlands, which are heavily reliant on Russian gas for their domestic needs, suddenly had to look elsewhere to meet their energy needs. For context, Russia heavily based its economy on oil exports. In 2020, Russia exported around $330 billion. On top of that, Russia also imported $220 billion worth of cars, microchips, computers, and other products. This meant that Russia was well entrenched in the international system of trade and finance, which was completely jeopardized after Russia threw itself at Ukraine. The connections which Russia had with other countries, whether they were financial, trade-related, or even cultural, ceased to exist after it launched its military offensive on Ukraine. Back to the European countries, which were heavily dependent on Russian gas. Most of these countries began devising plans to gradually phase out energy derived from burning fossil fuels. For the time being, they are trying to fill their energy quotas from gas-rich Middle Eastern countries like Qatar. Not only that, Russia's foreign reserves in other countries were also frozen with immediate effect, which meant that Putin had lost access to billions of dollars, and it also meant that Russia banks were no longer functional and able to do business with international clients. The impact of these economic sanctions was so harsh that Putin had to announce that if these sanctions continued unabated, then he would be forced to use nuclear weapons. These sanctions are like economic weapons of mass destruction. When conventional weapons are used, it causes immediate damage to property and people alike. However, things work differently when economic weapons like sanctions are imposed. The effects are long-term and are quite difficult to reverse. Another problem with these sanctions is that it hurts the professionals and the working class of the population. It does not affect the elites or the decision-makers, since they have enough resources of their own that they are not reliant on these sources in the first place. People who have to work at hourly rates will be affected the most from these sanctions. Putin will not be affected, but these people will probably never have the same quality of life. The second round of sanctions imposed was designed to hurt the oil oligarchs and the elites who are in bed with Putin. Their bank accounts were frozen and their assets were seized. Now, the West was hoping that Russia would finally succumb to these economic pressures and give in. But to the surprise of NATO and Western powers, the invasion continued. It turns out that Putin had secured a huge war chest from his oil sales. The reason for collecting these funds was to help Russia sustain through this invasion, which could possibly linger on till the end of 2023. The international rates of oil products in the market in February last year helped Putin earn hundreds of billions of dollars, and Europe was still buying Russian oil till December 2022. So this means that Europe is no longer buying Russian gas. Then does that mean that Russian gas is no longer in demand? And why do we need an oil cap if Europe is no longer buying from Russia? Europe is not the only country buying from Russia. India and China are its biggest customers right now. Both of these countries are getting Russian oil at a huge discount, and this is where $60 a barrel oil cap comes into play. This would mean that Russians cannot earn a handsome profit out of their oil sales, and this would essentially stop their war machine to a degree. Another important part of the oil cap is that the insurance companies used in the process of sending oil would have the proper documentation too that they are supporting the price cap. All of these steps would essentially serve to limit Russia's capacity to raise funds for supporting the invasion of Ukraine. So far, it seems as if the price cap is really working since both India and China have not protested against the oil cap move. That concludes our video. Please give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.